Good afternoon. Happy Wednesday. I am getting on here a couple minutes past when I was planning to because I was sitting here at my desk and I was getting ready. I was going over my notes, looking at some stuff, and I started hearing this like crinkling up in the light, and it sounded like when a light bulb's about to go out and it kind of makes that like weird little buzzing sound. So I heard that noise and I look up and there was a lizard up in my light. And so I'm like sitting here, I'm like, what is that? I see his tail fall out, his little feet fall out, and the whole thing, like his whole body just fell out. We have books sitting up there. He fell right on top of the books. I grabbed like my coffee. I like ran out. I spilled coffee all over my desk. I like called my husband. I'm like, I don't know what to do, Nathan. There's a lizard that just fell out of the light in the office. Anyway, so it was very eventful the last like 15 minutes, but so thankful. My brother-in-law came over and he works at my husband's office like 4 minutes away from here. So he came over and he was like hitting the books and the lizard jumped onto the wall. And so he tried to like grab the lizard off the wall. The lizard literally jumped from like, I don't know, 10 feet onto the floor, ran under our shelf. It was a whole ordeal, but he caught it. The lizard's gone now. I'm just going to keep that light off just in case there's a couple more hanging up there. They can just have free reign in that light bulb because I don't want them hopping out in the middle of this book study. But thank God that I was not in the middle of this book study when that thing fell out, because I would have screamed, I would have ran, and you guys would just be sitting here watching live until I could get to my phone. But he's gone now. So chapter 8 and 9 of Worthy this week. They are short chapters and I have really short notes. So I only have about 2 pages of notes. So this should go fairly quickly. The longest part is probably my story about the lizard falling out of my light. But we'll just jump right in. Chapter 8. If you have not been a part of our book study before, I'm doing Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima. And we've done the previous chapters already. If you haven't watched any of them yet, or watched my last book study, The 5 Things Successful People Do Before 8 a.m., you can go on YouTube. You can watch them all. They're all there for you if you want to join in, if you want to grab this book. It's a really good read. I highly encourage you to check it out. It's not necessarily a Christian author, but she does talk about her faith as she progresses through the book. But she wasn't a Christian all her life, and so she kind of has both perspectives. So I think it's a book that everyone could really use and enjoy. So chapter 8, the title is The Lie I Don't Have Anything Special to Offer. And I think that's something that we all struggle with internally, is we think we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not skilled enough, whatever it is, we all tell ourselves those lies. And so she goes through some of them. I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, talented enough, someone can do it better than me, my ideas aren't good. These are all lies that we have told ourselves, or some of us are still telling ourselves when it comes to things that we want to pursue, or dreams or passions we have, or maybe if you're single, relationships, you just don't think that you should put yourself out there because there's somebody that's better than you, or maybe you're just meant to be alone, and you tell yourself those lies. And we can look online and see there's hundreds of thousands of YouTube channels and bloggers, influencers, celebrities that have all gotten past telling themselves those lies. And if we want to succeed in life, if we want to show ourselves that we're good enough, we have to internally tell ourselves that those are just lies. And how do we get past them? We have to retrain our brain to say something else instead. And we talked about positive affirmations in the last book study. We talked about it a little bit in this book study, but those affirmations are going to give you the belief that you need. So I put on here what makes those YouTube channels, the bloggers, the influencers, celebrities different isn't that they have talent. Some of them, yes, they are talented, but it's the fact that they believe in themselves. They believe that what they have to offer is good enough. And so if we can believe that ourselves and look at ourselves and say we are good enough, then we'll also be able to have a successful life and have the life that we dream of, because we've transitioned ourselves to, instead of saying we're not good enough, saying we are good enough and go after what we believe that we are worthy of. So on page 130, jumping ahead, it says the world needs your ideas, thoughts, voice, gifts, love, friendship, and offerings. Remember, there's only one you in this world. If you show up and offer your authentic self in your idea, gift, or contribution to the world, it is impossible for someone else to have done it already because there's one you. And she talks about this. She really expounds on it through this chapter in the next couple of pages. But there's only one you. So if you show up as your authentic self and you show up with your humor or your skill or your, brain, like your knowledge, all of that, you're going to do something differently. You're not going to look like everybody else because you are special to you. You're going to attract people who want what you have to offer, and nobody else can offer that. If you don't show up, then the people who are looking for what you have aren't going to get it because they're going to be looking and you're not there to give it to them. And so we talked about this quote before, and it's something I keep repeating to myself. And I love putting it in every book study because I think it's an important reminder, is there's somebody waiting on the other side of your obedience. And God puts you where you are for a very specific reason. And if you choose not to be obedient to his calling and go after the dreams, desires that he's put on your heart, then you're going to stay where you are. And all of those people that you would have had an influence with, you're not going to influence them. They're not going to have that person that drags them along and shows them the way and builds up their confidence to get to where they want to go. So keeping that at the forefront of your mind, there's somebody waiting on the other side of your obedience. What you have to offer is really unique and special to you, and other people want that. So it says, don't talk yourself out of the person you're born to be. You don't want to look back on your life and say, I should have, I could have, or I wish I would have. Go out there and do it. Whatever it is that you want to do, maybe it's, you want to become a head chef at a restaurant, or you want to go back to school and get your degree, or you want to start a business, or you want to be a stay-at-home mom, or whatever it is that you want to do, go out there and do it. You don't want to look back 10 years from now. Figure out a way to make it work. If it's financial, figure out a way to earn like an income while you're at home, or if it's skill, then go out there and learn the skill. There's YouTube videos, there's books, there's free trainings all over the internet. Start researching it, find it, and put yourself in a position to learn what you want to learn and do what you want to do. Don't stay stuck. I put God created us each for a purpose, on purpose. If we don't allow him to use us, we will be held accountable. There's nobody else that's going to be held accountable for the things that we are called to do. It's going to be us. And so I don't want to get through my life and be face to face with my creator and him say, look at all these things you didn't do for me. Look at this skill that I gave you and you chose to keep it to yourself. You didn't utilize it. It's like the story of the talents. The master gives 3 people money and he says, I want you to multiply my money. And the one goes out and he makes a good, healthy living, brings the guy back lots of wealth. The other one kind of does some things and gets a little bit more, but then the other one buries it in the ground and does nothing. I don't want to bury it in the ground and do nothing. I want to live an abundant life. I want to come back to my creator and say, look at all I've done for you because of the gifts you've given me. So page 131, we can only receive the kind of love and acceptance from others that we give to ourselves. So this is again going back to that internal way that we talk to ourselves. There's always room for each person's unique way of doing it, for the secret ingredient that only your soul can add. And so she kind of expounds, again, if you read it, you'll see there's a lot more to this chapter than what I'm telling you. But basically, we talk ourselves out of doing things because maybe my idea is not unique. Maybe this isn't something that's, new to the world. And then she talks about, there's really no unique ideas out there. There's no new ideas. And if it is new, there's a good chance it's not going to be well accepted until it's more common. And she says, whatever it is that you have to offer, then you're the only one who can offer it the way that you can. So it doesn't matter how many people are doing it. It doesn't matter how many other book studies there are online. There's nobody that can do it the way that I do it or has the same thought process that I have. And so it's unique. It's different. There's nobody else that can do it the way that I can. And so reminding myself that, reminding you that whatever it is that you want to do, yes, there's going to be other people doing it, but they're not going to do it exactly the way you do. Towards the end of the chapter, page 136, no one else has access to the secret ingredient you have to offer, which is you. And she just reiterates that. And this whole chapter covers all of those thought processes and telling ourselves that, we're not good enough and we don't deserve this because somebody else can do it better. You are you, and you can do it the best that you can do it, and other people want that. And so be bold, be brave, go out and do it. Moving on to chapter 9, the title of this chapter, The Lie I Need to Please Them in Order for Them to Love Me, or for me to love me, I think is what she's alluding to here. It's just as in order to love me. And so it's talking about like we oftentimes take people's acceptance of us as love. And we think, okay, a lot of people like me right now, so I'm so loved. I should love myself, but we aren't living authentically to who we are. And so she talks about in this chapter, when she was hosting Christmas at her house, her husband's mom was there, and her, mother-in-law is a health guru and eats very well and really organically and doesn't eat processed sugars and carbs and all of these things. And she's like, and there was these cinnamon rolls sitting on the counter, and she's like, and I kept eyeing them, but she's like, no, I'm a broccoli girl today. I'm just going to eat the broccoli. That's all I'm going to do. I can't have this sugar because I don't know what my mother-in-law is going to say or think about me. And she says, like, my husband would eat something and she'd be like, oh, honey, that's really not good for you. You shouldn't eat that. She's like, I don't want my mother-in-law saying that to me. I can't handle that kind of pressure, so I'm just going to avoid the cinnamon rolls. Even though I love them, I'm not going to have it. And so as she's going through this chapter, she's like asking herself these questions like, why am I not eating it? I love cinnamon rolls. She's like, clearly, because I struggle with my weight, I love them. And she's like, I love them a little too much. But why am I withholding myself from having it? And so anyway, she starts this chapter off, and I think this may be her husband that quoted this, I'm not sure, but it says, if you live to please others, everyone will love you except yourself. And it's so true because, in this chapter, she's going to go over people pleasing. And if you try to please everybody, you get to a point where you inwardly feel like you're not good enough, or you feel like you're doing too much and not gaining the acceptance that you want, because you're working on pleasing everyone else when really you need to please yourself. You need to figure out what makes you happy, what brings you joy, and what do you find fulfillment in. And you need to put that in the forefront of your mind and not worry about what everyone else is doing. So on page 139, she says, research shows more than 50% of women and 40% of men describe themselves as people pleasers. People pleasing is generally described as striving to please others in order to gain their approval, avoid conflict or criticism, all while sacrificing your own wants and needs in the process. People pleasing leads to living inauthentically, shouldering extra stress, tiredness, resentment, and welcoming the feeling of constant failure, which impacts all aspects of your health, relationships, and life. And when you break it down and see all the things that living inauthentically brings to your life, it's so negative. And yet we look at it and we're like, well, it will make this person happy. But look at all the negative side effects that you are going to face if you don't show up as you, if you hide who you are, or you don't take that cinnamon roll because you want to please somebody else. You ultimately are going to be the one suffering. They're not going to suffer. And if you eat that cinnamon roll, they're still not going to suffer. But you will if you don't. And so you look at that and you think, like, why do people do this? But it's such an easy thing to fall into that trap of people pleasing. And I don't people please almost to a fault, where others' opinions of me don't necessarily bother me. Like, I always just say, like, that's on them, because it is. Whether they think I'm, being too fancy, or they don't like that I have a Stanley Cup, or whatever it is, like, I don't care. That's fine. If you don't like the Stanley Cup, that's okay. You know what? I kind of like it. I don't love it. It's not my favorite cup in the world, but I have them because I got them on sale. I didn't pay full price for any of them. And it's something that we just, I like the size of it or the color of it, whatever it is. But people look at it as a negative thing. And I'm like, that's okay. That's on you. If you don't like it, that's great. Whatever cup you like, then you use it. I'll use the cup that I like. You use what you like, and it's fine. My husband, on the other hand, would be like, oh man, what can I do? Like, how can I please them? And I'm always telling him, like, just say no. Just say no. Who cares? And he's like, how do you do that? I'm like, you just say it. And it's easy for me to not people please. But it is a hard thing, because I watch my husband struggle through it with his family and with his friends and with, the people he's around. He wants to please them. He wants to help them in any way that he can. And yes, I want to help people. And I genuinely do care about the well-being of them. But if it's affecting me and who I am and my integrity, it doesn't bother me, because I'm not going to let somebody else's opinion stop me from living the life God called me to live. And I keep telling myself that, like, God put me here for a reason, on purpose, for a purpose. He gifted me the way he's gifted me for an exact reason. And living that kind of authentic life and always remembering, you know what my Creator thinks of me is way more important than everyone around me. So I might not have lots of friends and be the most famous person on earth. That's okay, because you know what? God's called me to live this life right here. And if I live it truly to who I am and authentically the way he's created me, then I'm doing exactly what he put me on this earth to do. And that's way more important than people pleasing. So she gives some small steps to learn to stop people pleasing. And so I'm going to list 6 of them. So if you want to jot these down, if you're a people pleaser, write these down and reference them daily, whether it's a note in your phone, put on your wall, on your refrigerator, whatever it is. But if you struggle with people pleasing, here's some things that will help you to stop. 1 is to listen to your inner voice. So if you don't feel like it aligns with who you are, maybe somebody says, hey, let's go out and do this tonight. And you're like, I don't really like doing that. Don't say yes. Say, you know what? I'm not going to go. I don't like doing it. I don't enjoy it. Listen to your inner voice. That is your subconscious telling you what you believe is true and right for you. Number 2, speaking your truth. So if somebody says something that you don't align with, then it's okay to speak up. Maybe don't like initiate an argument, but like if somebody says, yeah, and you know, maybe gossipy or whatever it is and you don't agree with it, speak your truth and say, you know what? I don't want to listen to that. I don't want to hear that. What your negativity is going to affect me in a bad way, so I don't want to listen. Speak your truth. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Number 3 is identifying your priorities. And so my priorities is always my family. So if something affects the well-being of my family or the happiness of my family, I'm going to stand up for it and I'm going to speak my truth. I'm going to voice my opinion and I'm going to say, you know what? You doing this is negatively affecting me and my family, and it's going to cause us hurt. And so I don't want that in my life. And I'm going to push it aside. I can be gracious and I can be loving while doing it, but I'm going to identify my priority, which is my family, and I'm going to stand up for it. Number 4, setting boundaries. Whatever boundaries you need to set, you set them. You have to make sure that you are fulfilling your dreams and desires and setting those boundaries and not letting anything else stop you or get in the way of what you truly want. Saying no. Again, I don't have a problem with saying no. That's not hard for me. But if you do, practice saying no for small things. Maybe somebody says, hey, let's go out for ice cream. And you're like, I just started a diet. I could cheat a little. No, say no. You know what? No, I started a diet this week, so I'm going to skip out on this, ice cream this time. Say no on the small things and work your way up to the big things. You don't have to say no to everything all the time, but if it doesn't align with you, it's okay to say no. And number 6, strengthening your self-worth. If you really truly believe that you are worthy of a dream, desire, goal, accomplishment, whatever it is, then you need to really truly work on yourself, and you need to internalize it and say, how do I become the person I have to be to achieve these things? And that's where my journey started. Last year, I was not in the same place I am today, but I have prioritized personal development and I have prioritized working on myself, because everything I've read said if you work on yourself, you'll grow and you'll continue to learn and you'll eventually become the person you want to be, and you'll achieve those goals and the success that you're looking for. So those are 6 of them. She has a couple more in the book. So again, you can read chapter 9 and see the rest of them. It says, we often project our own insecurities onto situations. On page 140, she says, there's a famous saying, we don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. We bring our own beliefs, experiences, traumas, insecurities, and biases into every situation. And I can think of at least 2 examples off the top of my head where I have done this, where I have brought my own insecurities or my own past experiences into a situation, and I voiced something and said, no, this is what's going on. But I didn't actually know the facts, or I don't actually know, but I can relate to it because something similar has happened before. And maybe that person just needs help. Maybe they need guidance. And instead of me shying away, maybe I could have been that helpful hand. And so we have to work on ourselves to get to a point where we can see our faults and we can move past what we see or we think is beneficial, or the situation that we're in like we don't bring our negative energy. She talks about that in another chapter, our negative energy into a situation. Page 141, she says, as a result, we end up losing precious time worrying about things that never even existed and will never actually happen. The only solution is to be more aware of it and drop the people-pleasing and show up as our full selves, even though that requires bravery and vulnerability. And I love that. Like, I think that is a perfect ending quote to just end the chapter. Is yes, it takes bravery. It takes vulnerability. It's hard to show up as who we are and speak our truth and set our boundaries and stop people pleasing. All of that is super duper hard. And we just have to take it little steps at a time. Something that like I have focused on and that I'm very passionate about is small, sustainable changes. And so I a lot of times reference it in like health and wellness and fitness and, you know, bettering ourselves physically and mentally, but like it applies everywhere. Like it doesn't matter if you're, you know, cutting out Oreos at night or you're, you know, eating more broccoli. Like, yes, those are small, sustainable changes, but it also applies to things like this, you know, setting up those boundaries, stopping the people pleasing, the small steps that you can take to stop people pleasing. If you focus on those and you try little by little, eventually you're going to get to a point where you are so in line with yourself that that negative energy that people bring in or the negative confrontation or the things that happen in your past, they're not going to affect you as much as they do because you've worked on yourself and you can retell your story in a positive light. And all of the bad things that happen, you see how they have all set you up for a good purpose and like you're going to pursue things and you're going to be successful because you've redefined your story. And so a lot of this book is really just truly digging into yourself and allowing yourself to feel the hurt and yet redefine it and move past it. So that's chapter 8, chapter 9. Again, they were short chapters. So next week I will cover chapter 10 and 11. Chapter 10 is if I stand out, I'll get kicked out. So I feel like that's going to be a good one. I have already read through, but I haven't had my notes written down yet. So if you are enjoying this book study, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. All of my other chapters are on YouTube, so feel free to go and watch them. Let me know your thoughts. I love connecting and engaging with people on here, so if this is helpful to you, please let me know, and I will see you guys next week for chapter 10 and 11. Have a great rest of your day.